So Israel, US, and Iran wars indisputable endgame. Media, mainstream media, has been updating the world with news on what damages the US has wrought and what Iran and Israel have done since the beginning of the attacks on the 28th of February 2026. Some examples. In Bahrain, the US Navy's Fifth Fleet headquarters in Manama was struck by Iran, of course, causing damage to structures and satellite equipment. In Kuwait, Camp Arifjan reported casualties, and the US Embassy in Kuwait City was targeted. Ali Al Salim Air Base was also targeted with the missiles from Iran. Then UAE, the US consulate in Dubai was targeted along with drone strikes near Dubai International Airport. Then Qatar, Al Udeid Air Base was targeted, and an early warning radar in the north was hit. Then Saudi Arabia, the US Embassy in Riyadh suffered minor damage from a drone attack. TV and newspaper also said that the US attacked and sunk Iranian warship and some 84 sailors perished. Is that really true? Or is there something else to that? I leave it for you to see because it is not really true as they have claimed. Was it even a warship? It wasn't even a warship. You have to look it out. You look it out for yourselves. Here are some news that you may not have heard. Parts of Tel Aviv have become like Gaza after Israel's post attacks. You know how Gaza became a number of years ago, and it's still in ruins and damages. That's how parts of Tel Aviv have become because of Iran's attacks. An eyewitness has seen and sent photos and info to his US based alternative media source. Iran missiles has hit and destroyed the Dimona nuclear reactor in southern Israel. 11 top nuclear scientists are dead in that attack. 11 top nuclear scientists are dead. 6 IDF, which is Israeli Defense Force, generals have been killed by Iran in Israel. 198 Air Force officials, including senior pilots, have been killed. That's Israeli Air Force. 462 IDF soldiers have been killed by Iranian missile strikes. And then 32 Mossad, that is Israel's national intelligence agency, 32 of the Mossad agents have been struck dead by Iran. Even the head of Mossad is dead. Interesting. So over 700 high-level Israeli officials in total have been struck dead by Iran. Ben Gavir is killed by Iranian missile attacks. Ben Gavir is one who oversaw thousands of killings over the years on behalf of Israel. Some say he's badly wounded and he might recover, while other reliable information says he's already dead. Brother of Netanyahu too is killed in the attacks. Iran has damaged a U.S. aircraft ship in the Strait of Hormuz, which they have shut down. Yesterday, I also heard from one of the alternative news sources that Iran struck a missile in the family home of Benjamin Netanyahu, and it is believed that he also may have been dead. Because he hasn't come and done a press interview for a few days now. So only when there are some AI things happening, but only if he comes and openly comes on a press interview will we know that he's still alive. But that's another thought that has come through the news. So Iran has damaged the U.S. aircraft ship in the Strait of Hormuz, and they had to flee from there, from the shores, the U.S. Navy ship, the aircraft ship. Iran has laid out 5 to 6 grounds for U.S. to surrender. Can you believe that? You don't hear that in the mainstream news. And one of those conditions is You will not disturb, and no nation in the world will disturb us from continuing going ahead with the nuclear plant. And you will close all the censorship that you have done for over 4 decades against Iran through the United Nations. Those are just the two of them from the 5 to 6. Iran has complete control on the Strait of Hormuz, which still open again. It will impact the economy of the world, starting from the Gulf countries. Fuel, gas, sulfuric acid, and even food supplies, mainly to the Gulf countries. Currently, it is not US or Israel that is in control of the world economy, but Iran, in more ways than one, is in control of the global economy. You know the gas prices in the US, in Australia, it's already gone up by almost $1 per liter. And you're going to have food famine if this goes on for a little longer. The mainstream media will keep telling lies just as Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu have been. And even the globalist run media did in many past instances, like 9/11 incident, Osama bin Laden's death, and many more. Lies, lies, and lies, and cover up lies. Now, question that I ask you and myself: will I confidently vouch or put my money in the accuracy and authenticity of the information just shared with you? Would I vouch, or would I put my money not with 100% confidence? I wouldn't vouch nor put my money with 100% confidence. But what I'm going to share from this point onwards, I can bet my life on it. Why? Because they are from the only infallible source. And hence, I know with absolute certainty that they will come to pass just as we are going to see it shared today. For those who know world history, since the inception of humanity, no activity or events in the affairs of the nations and society should come as a surprise. No event. Why? Because the God who created all things, both seen and unseen, to the human eye that is, has in his love for you and me revealed the end from the beginning, even reiterated the events a few times, so that all can find comfort, not some, all, peace and assurance. Even when all things around us seem to be on the verge of dismay and maybe even a guaranteed collapse. On the flip side, there is a class of people, and they are pretty big in large number, who believe that nothing too bad will happen. Have you heard that? Eventually, things will be back to normal, and we will all rebuild the done damages and continue to live in peace and prosperity. So, considering these two standpoints that we have just mentioned, where does the current war scenario of Iran, Israel, and US fit in? Let me begin with a question. Why has the USA, the United States of America, been interfering with the affairs of the nations for a good number of decades? Why? Have you ever considered that or thought about it? Many a times under the banner of the United Nations. Why has America been interfering? When and how was the US founded? 1606 was the first time. The settlers from England put their foot on the US soil, and then a larger cruise went in 1620. And we'll come back to this a little later. And I want you to remember this, because we're going to discover some very interesting facets of the role of US and who's behind it and why. What about Israel? We saw that US was founded in 16. I mean, the first came in 1606, where only US was a very sparsely populated area before the settlers from England went there. Only the local Red Indians and the so-called Aboriginals were there, spread out in various parts of the US soil. It's only when these people went from England that they started to build a nation. 1606 first and 1620. Now, what about Israel? History clearly specifies that Israel became the nation of God from the descendants of Abraham. And it was declared so by God to Abraham in about 1900 BC, which is almost 4,000 years ago, my friends. God Himself declared the city of Israel, the descendants of Abraham, to be His nation, His people. Israel ceased to be the nation of God 1,992 years ago, more specifically AD 34. Since AD 34, which is not 1,992 years ago, they are not a nation of God at all. Their probation was closed, ended in AD 34. Let's have a read of that in Daniel 9, 20, 24. For the sake of time, this is the story of when Daniel was praying to understand what the visions were given to him. So the angel Gabriel, who took the place of Lucifer after Lucifer was thrown out of heaven, and he came swiftly and touched Daniel during his evening oblation, evening prayer. And then he said, I've come forth to give you skill and understanding, as verse 22 says. Then on 20, verse 22, verse 24 says, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness. But the people, the Jews, the Israel, didn't do that. Very few followed the apostles and the disciples of Christ. So, as a nation, 70 years is, in short, it is from the prophecy of Ezra in the book of Ezra 7, where the decree was given to go forth and by King Cyrus, Artaxerxes actually, to go and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. So that is, in short, is 457 BC. Bible prophecies always identified a day for a year principle found in Ezekiel and Numbers 14. So 70 weeks are 490 years. So 457 BC, 490 years comes to 3480. Their door as a nation was closed to continue to be a nation of God. But Israel, which is the Jews, have ignored this declaration from the God they claim to serve and continue to ignore this even till today. The building of the third temple have been in the cards for quite some years, and even the evangelical Christians in the US consider Israel to be a special, dedicated nation of God. And only about a week ago from now, only about a week ago, they, through a number of prominent church leaders, stated that the US government should, by law, enact the Sunday Sabbath observance this year in 2026. It happened just a week ago. And all opposers of Israel should be done away with and or silenced by President Donald Trump. In fact, they got together around President Trump in the White House just a few days ago and offered a prayer to attain that goal. They are overlooking the fact that Israel is not a nation of God. In fact, this is one of the motivating factors behind the initiation of the war on Iran. Amid all this, Israel is expecting to regain the entire country of Israel as a nation of God and wipe out all Palestinians and their houses of worship, which is their mosques, from within its borders. That's what Israel is expecting. Will that actually happen? Let's first look into the history of Iran in brief before we see the definitive answers to the end results of the current prevailing scenario in the nations of the world. Iran. Ancient name is Persia, which was more anciently known as Elam. Did you know that? His first name was by the name of Elam. It's there in the Bible. Elam was the eldest son of Shem, who was the son of Noah. And this is recorded in the very first book of the Bible, namely the book of Genesis, in the 10th chapter and 22nd verse. Elamis or Elam, of a province of Persia in which stood the capital city Susa. Perhaps in ancient writers it included the whole of Persia, which is called by later writers where the origin of Elamites is traced from. Shem. And those are the verses. This is from the Bible Concordance or Lexicon. So it's a well known country and people in the northeast of Lower Tigris. Where? Northeast of Lower Tigris was Elam. Now look at the map there. Can you see Iran there? Somewhere in the middle, just above on the left hand side of where is it in Asia, Middle East? And you can see the Tigris River on the left of Iran there. So this is in the northeast of the Tigris River. That's where Elam was, and that's where Persia was, and that's where Iran is today. The first king of Elam or Persia was King Shedar Laomer. First king. We find this recorded in the 14th chapter of Genesis. This was around 1900 BC or BCE, as some like to call it, which was in the time of the patriarch Abraham. Daniel's prophecy on the future of the nations of the world, as shown to him via dreams and visions from God, and he wrote them down for you and me, was repeated not once but twice. The first in chapter 2 of the book of Daniel, the second in chapter 7, and the third in chapter 11. Let's see the first one in chapter 2. You see the image there? Babylon was of gold, and we see the time frame 605 to 539 BC. Then Medo-Persia or Persia, breast of silver, 539 to 331 BC. That's the time Persia ruled the world. Then Greece, then Rome. But our focus today is on Persia, so we'll not go further. Then in Daniel 7, we see, now this one was a dream that Nebuchadnezzar had dreamt, and Daniel, through prayer, God showed him in the night vision the meaning of the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had dreamt, and then the meaning of that as well. And that's how Daniel explained to Nebuchadnezzar later on. That's the background of the story. Then in chapter 7, Daniel himself is seeing a vision. And he sees Babylon as a lion with eagle's wings. Then he says Medo-Persia as a bear. And then Greece as a leopard. And Rome as a very dangerous, scary beast or animal. Why does God use examples from nature? There is specific, precise reasons why God does that. Now we're going to look at something today about the bear. Now, then we have chapter 11, where the timeline of the Persian rulers are given there. You can see that on the chart there. We have starting from the Persian rulers, 4 rulers there, and then we come down to Greece, and then we have the Alexander the Great, and then they have some kind of a conjoined agreement with the king of the south, which is Egypt, and then through marriage and this and that, then we have the king of the north, and then we slowly come to the papal power. The verses after that in the latter part of Daniel 11, where papacy ruled the world for a period of time, a good period of time, and then we have France taking the Pope of Rome, Pope Pius VI, I think, and the French Revolution and the French principles of livelihood began in the late 1700s. And till today, we are still in that era of the French. Then comes the king of the north. If you can kindly mute yourself, please. But Today I wanted to focus more on the image of Medo-Persia, the bear. Why did God use a bear? Because you need to understand that to understand what Iran is and what it is capable of doing and what it was in the past. According to the Britannica and related sources, the bear and its feet are highly significant for their adaptation, survival, and specialized locomotion. That's the bear. Bears are large, solitary, and not just intelligent, they are highly intelligent mammals. That's why God used for Persia, Iran, the symbol of a bear in the vision of Daniel. Now, there is a new power in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, which refers to the Vatican, the Pope of Rome. It says in verse 13, chapter 13, verse 1 and 2, let's read that. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, that means out of the people, from among the people, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet, this beast's feet, which came out of the sea, very directly referring to the Pope of Rome, his feet were as the feet of a bear. Interesting. The beast is like a leopard, but his feet are the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So plantigrade locomotion of the bare feet, the feet of the bear. Unlike dogs or cats, bears are plantigrade, meaning they walk with their entire foot, sole and heel, touching the ground, similar to humans. This allows them to stand and balance on their hind feet, particularly to gain a better view of their surroundings. Non-retractable claws. Bear claws are non-retractable and exceptionally strong. Visualize with Iran, making them ideal tools for digging, tearing apart logs for food, and climbing. While they are not used for hunting in the same way a cat uses its claws, they are crucial for defense and for securing leverage. Visualize with the modern day Persia or Elam or Iran. What about the testimony from history on the wisdom of Elam or Persia or Iran? What about them? Because we saw one of the qualities of a bear is they are highly intelligent. Let's see what history has to share. In Matthew chapter 2, 1, when Jesus was born on this planet, it says, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. From where? From the east. Now, the Berean Literal Bible, which the Bereans used to study, the translation of that says, now Jesus, having been born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem. Magi, who's Magi? Oriental scientists. Properly belonging to the Median tribe, who seem to have conformed to the Persian religion. The name given by the Babylonians or the Chaldeans, Medes, Persians, and others to the wise men, teachers, priests, physicians, astrologers, seers, interpreters of dreams, augurs, soothsayers, and sorcerers, etc. The Oriental wise men, astrologers, who, having discovered by the rising of a remarkable star that the Messiah had just been born, came to Jerusalem to worship him. So it's highly possible, my friends, that from the wise men who came with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, one or more could have been from the current Iran, because that's from the east. I'll show it to you. Biblically, east refers to Iran in this context. But frankincense is something that is most importantly known in the country of the Sultanate of Oman. That's where what frankincense is known most for. Or Oman is known for frankincense from days of the past. So could be even from there, the wise men who, but they're all from the Persian religion at that time. Now, to show you further, the East refers to Iran or Persia. Let's see the prophecy of Daniel 11:44. By tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. This prophecy was culminated in the Crimean War between 1853 and 1856, where the east in the passage referred to Persia or Iran, and the north referred to Russia. And the he referred to the king of the north, which is the Ottoman Empire at that time, which is the modern day Turkey. Some other historic acts of Persia, the modern day Iran. Now, before I go to that, the modern day Turkey, do you know that Turkey has warned the world just hardly a week ago, which is the king of the north, the center of the king of the north, that belt? He said that the problems that the world is causing for conflict in the Gulf countries is a serious one. It can lead to dangerous ends. Turkey has warned just a few days ago. And as we go further, we're going to see why we eventually see a very special unity or unification between Turkey, Iran, Syria, and all the rest of them. Now, in Ezra 1 1 to 20, I'll not read for the sake of time. The king Cyrus gave the decree to go and build. You see that in verse 2. The Lord God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, because they're ruling the world at that time. And he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. So he gave all the resources, gold and people and craftsmen, to go and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And that's why he's telling Ezra here. And you will read the last verse in 20th. And whatsoever more shall be needful for the house of thy God, he's telling Ezra, which thou shalt have occasion to bestow it out of the king's treasure house. Generously gave Persian king for building the house of God. What about Daniel 10? Here, Daniel was praying because he saw a vision. He could understand where it is heading and what's going to happen. And so he was waiting and praying and waiting for God to show him through his angel. Something happened in that time. Let's read this, because you need to understand the seriousness of how God or heaven comes to the rescue of his faithful ones. And behold, an hand touched me. This Daniel is speaking here, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard. And I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. Who is the prince of the kingdom of Persia? He's talking referring to Satan and the evil angel. But lo, Michael, who refers to Christ, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. So the evil angels, including Lucifer, Satan, were trying to impress the kingdom of Persia, the ruler there, to make certain decisions to destroy and to stop the success and the victory of God's people, the Jews. And so the holy angels from heaven came, and for 21 days they are battling to keep the influence of the evil angels away from the kingdom of Persia or the king of Persia. Then eventually Jesus had to come himself, Michael. That's his Old Testament name. And then Gabriel comes to tell Daniel the story. This is written from a prophet, a message for the end times of the late 1800s. She says, while Satan was striving to influence the highest powers in the kingdom of Medo-Persia to show disfavor to God's people. Angels worked in behalf of the exiles. The controversy was in which all heaven was interested. Through the prophet Daniel, we are given a glimpse of the mighty struggle between the forces of good and the forces of evil. For 3 weeks, Gabriel wrestled with the powers of darkness, that's the evil angels, seeking to counteract an influence at work on the mind of Cyrus, who was the king of Persia at that time. And before the contest closed, Christ himself came to Gabriel's aid. All that heaven could do in behalf of the people of God was done. The victory was finally gained. The forces of the enemy were held in check all the days of King Cyrus and all the days of his son Cambyses, who reigned about even 7.5 years. That temple, which King Artaxerxes helped to rebuild before 300 BC, that temple was eventually destroyed by Rome in AD 70. Completely destroyed. Then 538 AD, a baptized Roman Empire idol worshipper took stage on the global arena and ruled as a monarch from the Vatican City for 1260 years, just as prophecy had declared. Why do I say baptized? Because these were heathen worshippers, worshipping idols. They just took the name of Christ or Christianity, and that's why I say baptized. 50 plus million Christians were killed by this baptized empire, whose feet are like the feet of a bear, if you remember what we read in Revelation 13, 1 and 2. 50 plus million Christians were killed by this so-called baptized empire, ruling from the Vatican City. The first step to achieve this, they planned to create a counterfeit religion, and in the early 600s, 680, Islam was formulated by this baptized empire called the Roman Catholic monarchy. They are the ones who created the Islam religion. Now you can go and have a look at this my YouTube page, and if you go on the right hand side, if you see the whip of God, you will see the part 3 of 7. I have put that there, so you can go and have a listen of that again. So you'll have some more clear picture and more details on that subject. Tiny babies at this time were thrown just this way into the walls of the Colosseum, and were mercilessly killed. Tiny babies. That's what the Romans did. Romans means the officials of the Roman Catholic Church system, the leadership, their army. Then, through Ignatius of Loyola, the Jesuits were formed in the early 1500s, and the persecution moved on more relentlessly. The Jesuits have been and still are the right-hand army of the Pope, and they too have a Pope, namely the Black Pope, who, in many respects, supersedes the main white Pope in executive powers. That's how powerful the Black Pope is. And hence, a good group of faithful Christians in the late 15th century took the first ship and sailed to the shores of America. And America was discovered and eventually formed as a Protestant American nation, which God blessed. And God blessed the country, and hence its success seen by all nations for years, even to date. That's how America was found and established. They ran away from the persecutions of Rome. We saw the date 1609 and then 1620. And God blessed the country abundantly. And we'll see more. Then in 1798 AD, General Berthier of France took Pope Pius VI captive, and the state power of the Vatican ended. So that's 538 AD to 1798, 1260 years. They ruled the world. the Pope of Rome from the Vatican. 1798, Napoleon's general birth here, France took Pope Pius V captive. Their state power ended there. But in just 2 years, which is in 1800, what happened? Following the death of Pope Pius VI in French captivity in 1799, Pope Pius VII was elected in March 1800, just 2 years, and immediately began regaining the stability, independence, and international standing of the papacy, which had been severely damaged by the French Revolution. Lateran Treaty in June 7, 1929 to June 3, 1985, between Italy and the Vatican. It was signed by Benito Mussolini for the Italian government and by Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Gasparri for the papacy and confirmed by the Italian Constitution of 1948. This baptized empire had to, just as prophecy had declared, slowly and subtly get back its power over the world. Hence, 4th July 1776, the Declaration of Independence in the US. Remember, this nation was blessed by God. Then, just few years after that, less than 100 years, 14th April 1865, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, was assassinated. By who do you think? By Rome. Vatican Army, Jesuits of Rome. 22nd November 1963, John F. Kennedy, the 35th president, was assassinated by the same people. Both World War I and World War II were orchestrated by the Jesuits of Rome over 100 years before they were played out. They had written letters about this, that planned it over 100 years before the First World War and the World War II. They were the ones behind this orchestration. All that Hitler did in Germany were directly under the orders of the Pope of Rome. Did you know that? Then, 2015, Pope Francis steps into the US soil. First time in the history of America, a Pope from the Vatican comes, not just enters the country, but he's welcomed with a lot of glamour and pomp. He goes into the Senate, the Parliament. Then where the independence was declared in Pennsylvania, he goes there as well, and he lectures there. What had prophecy foretold around 80-90? 80-90, what had prophecy foretold? Let's see this. Revelation 13:11 to 18. And I beheld another beast coming out of the earth. This is sparsely populated. That's referring to America. And he had two horns like a lamb. Two horns represents Protestantism and republicanism. And he spake as a dragon. That means this beast, this America, will eventually start to speak like a dragon. How does a nation or a country speak? Through their legislation. So, and that's why America has been doing what has been doing, interfering with countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on and so forth for a long, long time. And he, this beast, exercises all the power of the first beast. The first beast, in verses 1 and 2 and 3 of the same chapter, which is the Pope of Rome in the Vatican. He exercises all the powers of the first beast before him and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. So why is he doing all this? To make people who dwell in the world to worship the first beast. Brothers and sisters, this is about worship. Most people will not see that way. But this is an infallible source. We have been told here. Whose deadly wound was healed. It decided to be healed in 1800. The 1929 is the Lateran Treaty. And it's going to be fully healed. And he doeth great wonders so that he maketh a fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. That's what US will do. Has been doing. You heard about aliens, UFOs? That's a big lie. And you can watch my video on this later on, and you'll see more detailed information about that. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. What they will make? An image to the beast. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. And the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast, these are Protestant Americans who will make an image to the beast, that's America. I mean, sorry, image to the first beast, which is Pope of Rome. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. The mark. What does the Catholic Church leadership say about the mark? Sunday is the mark of their authority. Sunday Sabbath. In the same year, 2015, the massive Muslim refugee infiltration peaked. It was happening before, but there was a sudden influx and peak it reached in 2015. Do you recall that? Into many European and Western countries. The same year that Pope Francis went to the US. It's not a coincidence, my friends. What is Islam subtly working towards at this time? Daniel 11:45 is the last prophecy of the chapter to be fulfilled, and they are planning and working to very subtly to have that fulfilled as soon as things work in their way. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. They're going to make their head office in Jerusalem, King of the North, once there is a caliph elected. You can see that video on the Whip of God that I have produced on that page, part 3 of 7, and you'll see more detailed explanation about that, what Islam is planning and what they will eventually do. What and who is Hezbollah? I'm sure you have heard that name. What and who is Hezbollah? See their symbol of flag. Hezbollah, or Party of God, is a Lebanon-based Shia Islamist political party and militant group with a powerful armed wing, largely backed by Iran. Oh, Hezbollah is largely backed by Iran. Formed in the 1980s, it acts as a major political, social, and military force, designated as a terrorist organization by several countries. Since October 2023, the group has been engaged in intense conflict with Israel since 2023. Interesting, right? Do you know that Hezbollah is a powerful proxy of Iran? Can you see that in the map there? See Israel and see where Lebanon is. Right in the southern end is the border between Lebanon and Israel. Just a few years ago, what was found? Hardly a week ago. Massive amounts of arms and ammunitions were found in the southernmost part of Lebanon, right in the border of Lebanon and Israel. All are stored there by Hezbollah, so that as they work around with Iran, they can attack Israel. Do you think attacks are coming only from Israel? I mean, only from Iran, directly Israel? Hezbollah is working side by side with them from the very border of Lebanon and Israel. As per the prophecy we just read in from Revelation 13, 11 to 18, who is the most powerful proxy of the Vatican or the Pope of Rome or the baptized monarch whose wound is being healed? Who is the most powerful proxy of this power? It's the United States of America. And we saw that in verses 11
USA.
of Revelation 13. So let's cut to the chase and spell out the exact events and in sequence, and then we're done. So what you are seeing happening right now, Iran is dominating, controlling the global economy because of the way it stands, the way it has control over the Strait of Hormuz. They are known for their ballistic missiles. And those deadly ballistic missiles, they've hardly used much of them. They're using the cheaper ones, the drones and other missiles. If they have to go wholesale, it'll be very hard in America and Israel as well. But it's not going to happen that way because the infallible source, God is giving the Bible, says something else. Something is going to happen that Iran will step back for a period of time. So we're going to spell the exact events and in sequence how this is going to go and what will be the end game. So let's start. Revelation 13:11-17. We read what it says there. We'll not read that again. The tariffs being slapped by Donald Trump to so many countries, China, India, but India they couldn't succeed because the Supreme Court said no, that's against the law. And he's slapping those tariffs to other European countries, including France and Spain and so on. It's a well-designed plan to set the stage for implementing the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is very straightforward. You can see in my it's part 4 and 5 of the 7-part series of the page that I just showed you. You'll see details there. Mark of the beast is Sunday worship enforced by law, starting from the U.S. Starts in the U.S. and goes to all over the world. So these tariffs that Donald Trump has been doing is not, he's not just stubbornly or arrogantly doing it. There is a planned agenda behind all of this. Setting the stage for implementing the mark of the beast. Remember I showed you a little while ago that the Protestant or the evangelical churches in the U.S., they are pushing President Trump to make an image to the beast. That's papacy. And bring in the Sunday Sabbath, which is not a Bible Sabbath anyway, this year in 2026. AI, digital passports, COVID-19, internet online emphasis, credit cards or bank cards, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft all are engineered to achieve the goal to officially and openly reinstate the Pope of Rome as the monarch of the world. That's what they are for, not for your comfort as you might think. Just as it was for 1260 years in the past. Since the 1800s, he has been directing and controlling just about all nations of the world, but from behind the curtains, mainly through the Jesuits of Rome. While this is steadily moving towards its goal, two major things are increasing speed too. One, there's a group of people, and only one group of people, spread about in various parts of the world, who are working on spreading the gospel of the kingdom, preaching all the word, because Jesus said, only when this is done, then shall the end come. To give every human being the opportunity to understand the love of God in and through Jesus Christ, His Son. And once they have the opportunity to hear the truth, then they make their own decision whether to embrace it or reject it. Once that is done, then the end will come. Jesus himself said that when he walked on this earth, giving the signs of the end of times to his disciples. So that's number one. That's increasing speed too. And another thing that's increasing speed is Daniel 11:45. And he, that means the king of the north, shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. But yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. That means he will eventually come to his end. These two things are moving speed as well. And that's why the influx of many Muslim refugees in the Western world picking up in 2015 onwards. So the second one is Daniel 11:45. Spreading out in good numbers to all the key countries and locations of the world. continue to keep Israel under periodical attacks, and all who support Israel. Prepare to elect the right caliph of Islam as his pope for the Roman Catholics. Then march to Jerusalem and take over Israel comprehensively and make Jerusalem their official headquarters. Israel, which is the Jews, at this time will be completely annihilated. Do you see that? So when the Islam eventually elect a caliph, which is like the Pope for the Roman Catholic people, they will plan together and march to Jerusalem with their army and make it their official capital. And when they do that, the Israelites or the Jews will be completely annihilated at that time. No, not right now. No, there's only scratching the surface what they're doing right now. But there'll be a total annihilation of the Jews. Did God did God foresee that and did he inform us about it? Of course he did. See, the Ishmaelites or the Muslims are the descendants of Ishmael. When Elam or Persia was there, Islam didn't even exist. It came only after 680s. It was created by the Roman Catholic Church system. But see what God said in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, 16th chapter, verse 12. And he, that is Ishmael, will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And we see that happening now. Of course, with the different religion that they have. And hear what God has already prophesied in the book of Amos about Israel. Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the face of the earth. See? God is saying here, I will destroy Israel completely from the face of the earth. That means he's going to use the descendants of Ishmael to do that. Saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, said the Lord. That means those who repent and turn to God through Christ will be saved, but all the others will be destroyed by the roots. Then this is the third one. It happens during the sixth plague, and the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. I have made a detailed presentation of that. It's called The Last Great Crisis, the very first one, part 1 of 7. You can go and have a listen to that with the details of the third event. So the first is the U.S. is going to enforce, not Iran, and the U.S. going to enforce global Sunday worship, starting from U.S. and going all over the world. And that will work as a stepping stone on the ground. Or other words, other way I can say is that will precipitate the step number 2 for Iran, Turkey, and all the Muslim nations to get together and in a hurry engage, take over Jerusalem. And the third, so when Islam, along with Iran, Turkey, and the rest of the Muslim nations, go to Jerusalem, Israel will be annihilated completely. And Islam will rule the world for almost a year. And the US and the nations of the United Nations, G8, G20, G24, all that, they'll be sitting quiet. And the plagues of God will be falling in various parts of the world. But during the sixth plague, we just read in Revelation 16, all the nations, East, Russia, India, China, Pakistan, and all of them, they'll come together. And that time they will destroy Islam, King of the North, completely in Jerusalem. That's called the Battle of Armageddon. And this when Christ will intervene. That's very close to his coming. and the voice of God comes at that time. And papacy, for which has been working and planning for hundreds of years, since 1800s, is going to be a monarch, according to Bible prophecy, only for about 2 weeks. And the voice of God comes and strikes all of them to ashes. You know, Jeremiah prophesied about Elam or Iran. See what it's saying? The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet against Elam in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, I will break the bow of Elam. That's when it happens. Persia's bow, along with the rest of the Muslims, will be broken at that time in the sixth plague. The chief of their might, and upon Elam will I bring the four winds from four quarters of heaven. See? From all nations they will come. Four winds, four quarters. Jerusalem and destroy the battle of Armageddon. That is not the battle of Armageddon. Armageddon is when the voice of Father comes, but that's a preparation. They will come and break Islam and Elam completely at that time. And there shall be no nation whither the outcasts of Elam shall not come. For I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies. See? Persia, Iran will be dismayed before their enemies. Not now. At that time. Remember, before that, they will rule the world for about a year. And before them, that seek their life, I will bring evil upon them, even by fierce anger, said the Lord, and I will send the sword after them till I have consumed them. See that? God showed this in Jeremiah over 500 years before Christ's coming. And I will set my throne in Elam, and I will destroy from thence the king and the princes, said the Lord. But it shall come to pass that in the latter days, that I will bring again the captivity of Elam, said the Lord. What is the latter days? Isaiah 9, Isaiah 11, 9 to 11. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, that's Jerusalem. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, the faithful, true followers of Christ, the Christians, which shall stand for an ensign to the people. For it shall the Gentiles seek. To it shall the Gentiles seek, with all the heathen worshippers. And his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, the remaining of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam. So many from these nations will accept Christ. When the gospel of the message will be preached by various people, but only one group of people who are spread across. There are no two groups. Only one group is doing this. God has given the light only to one group. And from Hamak and from the islands of the sea. That day, some of the people from Elam or Persia or Muslims will follow the root of Jesse. The battle, my friends, is primarily between the law of God and the law of man. Sabbath Sunday is the law of man. That's how the Protestant Christians, the evangelical in the US, have already made an image because they worship on Sunday. They also worship the heathen god of the Catholics, which comes from Babylon, Trinity, God Trinity, which is their stamp of authority. Because on Trinity, the Catholic Church system says in their books, on Trinity is based every other doctrine. All Christians, with very few exceptions, all Christians, all churches, Protestants, evangelicals, they all worship the Trinity God, which is Satan worship. They all worship on Sunday Sabbath. And that's why the battle is primarily, it has always been between the law of God and the law of man. The question is, whose law would you commit to keep? And that's why in the very end of the Bible, this is my last slide for the day. God has promised for those who commit to doing his law, his will, Revelation chapter 22, 12 to 15. And Jesus is the words of Jesus Christ himself, the Son of God. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they. Blessed are another word that you could use a synonym for blessed, happy, are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter into the gates of the city. For without, meaning outsiders, are dogs, sorcerers, whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. So for us to be saved and be covered under the umbrella of God's protection, we have to commit to Christ. And through his power, grace, and strength, we'll be able to do his commandments and represent the character of Christ as Christ exemplified when he walked when he walked this world 33 years. My prayer for each of us today is hope we can commit ourselves because the time is short. Maybe the persecution might start only a few months from now. Only God knows. Because they have said they want to bring in the Sunday Sabbath by law this year. Will God allow it to happen? We don't know. God in his mercy might give us a little more time. But we need to commit our lives completely at the foot of the cross of Jesus Christ and let him reign in our lives, so that we can live Christ, breathe Christ, and be a blessing to everyone around us and help them to be saved as well. So that when Jesus comes, they can go along with him and enter into the gates of the city, the New Jerusalem, and have right to the tree of life, which perpetuates life.